Good afternoon and welcome to today's Adweek webinar, 90 Days to E-Commerce Success, how a leading industrial manufacturer achieved lightning-fast digital transformation. I'm Caroline Cakebread, Senior Editor of Adweek's Content Studio, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. Before we begin, I want to take a few minutes to make sure everyone in our audience knows what to expect from today's webinar and that you're familiar with the features of our platform. Today's presentation should go somewhere in the 35-minute range, after which we'll have time for audience Q&A. So if at any point you have a question for today's speakers, just use the Q&A tool on the left side of your screen, and we'll get to as many questions as we can after the end of our formal presentation. It's not too late to invite your colleagues to join us. About 15 minutes ago, you should have received a final reminder email from us, and there you'll find a link to the webinar registration page that you can share with your colleagues. There's still plenty of time for them to join us live, but if they can't, today's webinar is being recorded and they can always catch the on-demand version later. So now, let me take a minute to introduce you to today's speakers. We are thrilled to be joined by Alex Del Canto, Head of DXP Ecosystem at Acquia, and Dr. Ali Akafaji, Chief Technology Officer at TA Digital. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Alex to kick off today's presentation.
Thank you so much. Today we are delighted to be with you. We're going to walk through a fantastic story, as was just mentioned by Caroline, of a direct-to-consumer industrial manufacturer who underwent a really massive digital transformation in an extremely short period of time, both from the content side and more recently from the data side. And then Ali will take us away with how they actually implemented such a solution and some of the concepts that you might want to take into consideration when embarking under a similar approach. But before we get into that, I did want to level set with you all a little bit about where the current state of the market is in terms of commerce. Digital commerce is a concept that has existed for some time now. At one point in its existence, it was a differentiator in and of itself. Having a store on the web was unique, right? And that was not too long ago at all. But all companies have made a tremendous amount of investment over the years into building out not only their commerce experiences, but their experiences at large. And yet many brands still aren't able to execute experiences effectively. Personally, I can honestly tell you that I get about at least one brand per day that lets me down in one way, shape, or form. It's funny for me because I get to pick those experiences apart as part of my role at Acquia. But for the world and your consumers, that's about 1 in 3 customers that your brand risks alienating. And it's not to say that your brand is delivering bad experiences. It's just the way that the systems of the past, or monoliths, if you will, have been created and to actually add challenges to delivering exceptional experiences. So if you think about it, at the end of the day, in the past, these monoliths have been lauded with the words configuration, or even worse, customization. And that is exactly the problem, right? And this is what is fueling a composable commerce revolution, really breaking the shackles of those monoliths of the past, connecting your teams from marketing to commerce to customer support even, and allowing your brand to create shoppable experiences and pivot quickly, all thanks to an entirely new architecture and way of thinking, enabling brands to truly unlock creativity and the energy to execute effectively. And that's really the core difference between composability and configurability, and again, worse, customization. Because all brands need to be absolutely nimble when it comes to commerce, effortlessly testing, iterating, and building new experiences to convert. And those brands that truly consider their customers and consider what they're trying to achieve and how they can help them as their tastes and preferences and ultimately their needs change, surfacing these unique experiences for every individual along the customer journey, even when some of their past preferences may no longer be true indicators of their future buying patterns, are those brands that will gain an edge and win and beat out their competition. And those are the brands that ultimately will create exceptional experiences. And so to achieve this, a modern commerce strategy must be built atop a composable digital experience platform, leveraging the components that you need today to deliver these exceptional shoppable experiences, but ultimately with the flexibility so that you can quickly onboard future capabilities that have been packaged up to continue to allow you to continue to accelerate your growth for tomorrow. This agility is really key, as each and every retailer, business, and brand, we all want to be that trusted entity that consumers spend an unproportionate amount of time and money with, particularly in this post-COVID age, as consumer buying patterns are changing every single day, because the brand knows them better than anyone else. And at the end of the day, content and data are at the core of achieving this, and composability is what will make brands successful. And so with that concept of composability in mind, I want to quickly walk you through the 90-day story of the digital transformation of one of my favorite customers at Acquia. They're really lovely people. This brand works within the cooking space. They make small home appliances, kitchenware, and they also have a professional appliance business as well for restaurants and the like. But when COVID hit, they were in a pretty unique spot, because if you don't know, the majority of us, at least here in the United States, don't actually cook at home. The majority of us, do a lot of takeout. We eat out a lot. And so when COVID hit, many of us, myself included, found ourselves in a spot where we had to kind of make do with what we knew in the kitchen and the ingredients that we had on hand. And I think most of us, funnily enough, and the research goes to show that we actually fall into two distinct camps, one-to-one, effectively. Half of us wanted to, eat healthier when COVID hit, and the other half of us wanted to actually indulge a little bit more. Personally, I'm of the camp that, if you eat one pizza a day, it'll keep COVID away. I don't know how it worked out. I know my neighbor took a more vegetable route, but we're both here, so knock on wood. But at the end of the day, all of us were looking for very simple solutions, right? Cooking is hard, especially if you don't know what you're doing, and you don't want to make a mess, certainly in the kitchen. And through this process, many people have discovered new ingredients, new products, and new brands along the way. And store closures ultimately drove massive growth across the industry, but demand really outpaced many other industries for home goods and cookingware and these small appliances because people had to stock up and get prepared. Otherwise, they weren't going to eat. So this is really a unique scenario and one that's quite interesting as people have found a new hobby in cooking. Now, this brand specifically, they are a leading industrial manufacturer. And like I said earlier, they help both home cooks and chefs alike create delicious moments, no matter where you're eating. And they really work across multiple geographies. They have a presence globally, and ultimately they are trying to deliver great products to their customers. But the way that they did that traditionally was very different from an e-commerce model. They don't have any retail stores per se that are theirs, that are branded and owned by them, but they do sell through a variety of retail outlets, and they have had for quite a while. If you can imagine the likes of your typical Costco's and Walmarts and Best Buys and the like. Each of these types of retail outlets sell these types of appliances all the way through to your higher end stores like your Williams and Sonomas, and so those stores obviously felt some impact on COVID as well, just like every other business, and they shifted to an online model. But this company's digital transformation journey actually started a lick before COVID hit. In fact, they were going with this reseller model for quite some time, and they still are. It's very fruitful. They love their relationships. They love all of the retail outlets that they work with. But ultimately, the experience that they were delivering on their own site was a massive disconnect with the brand image and the brand voice, and ultimately the look and feel that they want their customers to experience, right? It was a very frustrating experience overall. it was frustrating for both the customer as they look to find products that they want and try to purchase them. And we'll go through some of those experiences in just a few moments. But it was also very frustrating for the actual employees of this brand to try to spin up something that was relatively acceptable in some way, shape, or form. It was extremely painful for them to update content. It was extremely painful for them to try to make anything unique to their brand because there was this cookie cutter approach that was put in place. And ultimately, if they wanted to try to actually deliver a unique experience to their customers through their own property, it was incredibly expensive. And so in 2019, this company actually engaged with both Acquia and TA Digital to deliver an entirely new approach. And it is this composable approach at the end of the day that checked all the boxes for them. It delivered high value. It was extremely quick to implement. It was about 90 days, as we said earlier. And it allowed their brand to deliver shoppable experiences anywhere in a seamless fashion today, building their brand up and ultimately allowing them the flexibility to onboard new technologies as the needs arose and as their maturity grew. And I'll just leave you with these figures up front. The results really do speak for themselves. In just a lick over 90 days, this brand saw a massive lift, right? 90 days to go live for any enterprise project is an incredibly short amount of time in and of itself, let alone when it comes to commerce in terms of the full replatforming. But they were able to take full advantage of this composable approach in record time, start small and scale up very, very quickly. And through the beginning of 2020, as COVID hit, as those market forces changed, and as demand truly soared, this brand saw a massive increase in traffic, which in turn, thanks to the exceptional experience that they were delivering, that they continued to iterate on in the months leading up to the unfortunate lockdowns that ensued, they saw massive increases in conversions on their site and revenue. And I think most important to note here is the scalability that Ali will get into, I know, in his section a little bit later. But keep in mind, such an increase, such a rapid increase in traffic and in demand is a problem for many businesses to be able to sustain and continue their operations. And this brand did it seamlessly. They saw full continuity through the rollout and through the spikes when the March lockdowns hit, and they've been continuing to test and iterate and deploy new experiences at every stage, every day since. And so, again, the numbers here really do speak for themselves. But that's not the most important thing. Let's take a look at the actual experiences that they were working through. So I mentioned earlier, they did have a platform before. It was one of those first-gen platforms where all the features were in a shop effectively, as you saw earlier in the presentation. It's very slow, very fragile, and ultimately was desktop focused. Now, if you're anything like me, or at least about the majority of consumers in the world, I'm on my phone all day. I think everyone that I see when I walk around these days is also on their phone. I'm browsing while I'm watching TV. I'm looking at my phone while I'm on my computer. And so having a mobile outlet in which to actually surface the shoppable experiences in is crucial for brands. About 50% of all e-commerce sales today happen on a mobile device. And so just by shifting to a modern platform that not only unlocked a modern desktop experience on the web, but also a modern mobile experience, in addition to being able to be extensible to any channel, allowed this brand to see a surge from nearly no conversions on a mobile device to over 50%, right in line with the market average, which in and of itself unlocked an entirely new revenue stream that they had not been able to tap into before. Now, the second part of the actual experience portion of the story was the site itself, right? Like I said earlier, configurability is different from composability. And so when you look at this site, it is in and of itself very, very different to what they had before. And they're able to change every single element on this page as they see fit, as their needs change, as they identify new opportunities in the ways that their consumers are engaging with the content on their site and the new things that they learn about their customers as they progress through their customer journey. So before making any change to the site to their storefront was a massive problem. It often involved engaging an agency or professional services at times just to make simple changes like moving the order of things around on a web page, or implementing a new filter, or adding a rating, star rating system and a review system to the page. Now, thanks to no-code tools that they can leverage, they are able to actually do this on the fly. And it's not their developers that are necessarily doing these things. This is literally their business users who are going in and very, very quickly dragging and dropping things on their site, checking how they feel, running tests, seeing how they perform, and then ultimately launching those tests that succeed live to the site on a continual basis. And so this is extremely powerful because, like I said earlier, our buying patterns are changing every day. The way we interact and our expectations continuously grow. And so having this level of flexibility is immense. In particular, when you take into consideration how quickly, our largest, retail, if you will, competitors out there, if you think of the Amazons of this world, how quickly they're refining and deploying their sites. So in order to meet that experience or even beat it, this is a critical piece of functionality that they were able to use to deliver these seamless experiences. Now, there is a story wrapped around every product within our catalog, right? If it was just about, exchanging money or bartering for something, we wouldn't really get very far. There's a reason why I want to buy cookware or a small appliance from this brand versus another one, or even buy from their site versus a third-party retailer that might carry some of their product line. At the end of the day, for this brand, it doesn't matter where that product is purchased, but they want to deliver an experience that is unique to their brand so that whether customers are researching their products or just getting to know them, educating themselves about what's available in market, they can be that single source of truth for their brand voice and image. And so to actually wrap this experience around the product catalog itself and each and every single product that they have, before they were really reliant on text-based descriptions that were often long-ended, which is a fine approach, but it doesn't really cater to the way we consume information today as we all binge on content, as we all sit down in front of the multiple screens that are in front of us literally all the time. And it doesn't work for search engine optimization either. And so what this brand was able to do, thanks to Acquia CMS and the Drupal that underpins it, is actually refine this experience, implement the use of rich assets from videos to images to short form, very quickly consumable text that is also search engine friendly, to deliver a visual and engaging experience that speaks to each and every consumer, and ultimately at the end of the day is personalized to every consumer, so that they not only want to interact with this content, but they leave either converting or in a much further stage in their customer journey in a much more informed state, thanks to the positive impact that this experience has had on them. And again, the results here are translate to this experience. They saw lifts in their add to cart rates just by changing the way that they actually present and deploy experiences on their storefront. Then The last piece of the actual experience portion of this content that I wanted to talk about is the checkout. Now, the checkout is essential. I spoke about Amazon just a little bit earlier. If you think about it, their meteoric rise to success has been that one-click checkout button. It was patented. It was, a very, very smart thing for them to do. I'd argue when it first came out, it was something that wasn't really noticed too much. It kind of flew under the radar beyond the concept being novel. But in today's age, we've seen just how much removing friction from each and every point in the customer journey translates to additional dollars and a bigger bottom line. And so by moving away from a multi-phase, multi-page checkout process, whereby a lot of consumers were actually abandoning their purchases and looking elsewhere, or worse, to other brands to buy these types of small home appliances to put in their kitchens, and moving to a single and secure, very seamless one-page checkout, this brand saw a 5x conversion in their experience. And in and of itself, if you're losing your customers at the checkout phase, that is the most painful point in the customer journey in which anyone can lose a customer, because you're so close to the actual reward at the end of the tunnel in gaining a new loyal customer. So this is extremely important for any brand to truly win with, and as simple as it may seem. Now, I want to talk a little bit about working smarter and deploying intelligence at scale, because not everything lies within the actual content that we surface, but there is a data component to composability as well. In fact, like I said earlier, it's one of the core components of any experience. And so when we think about the actual experience itself, a composable solution built atop a digital experience platform like the one that Acquia provides is really all about being able to surface the data that has been sorted and rationalized and consolidated into a golden record to any person within your organization to empower them to make the right decisions and take decisive action to help your customers at every point of interaction, whether they be digital or facilitated face-to-face or through the phone or through a chat system, if there's an actual person engaging in that conversation. Because really, at the end of the day, every single interaction your brand has is exactly what makes up your brand. So by democratizing this data and by providing a 360-degree view of the customer, having implemented a first-party data strategy as third-party cookies are now going away, this brand has actually been able to do a few very interesting things that I'll get into in the next few slides that have allowed them to further their experience and unlock value for their customers at every phase of the customer journey, not just when they're in their shop. The very first of which is, typically brands have relied on transactional history to actually, infer where a customer was in their journey, and ultimately, determine which products were, the next best ones to offer them. There's always been some form of manual segmentation. I think we've all been culprits at one point or another of having seen a product recommended to us that we've actually already bought. And so by having that consolidated view of the customer, this brand was actually able to leverage machine learning and predictive analytics alongside product and category clusters to not only determine where a customer was in their journey, but ultimately identify what to recommend to them next that was most likely going to get them to convert. And it's not as simple as saying, Alex bought a mixer, let's give him all the accessories to the mixer. It's all about the persona in of itself and understanding, does he live in a household of 1 or 4 or 10? How many people is he cooking for? All of the insights that we as consumers provide this brand with to be able to personalize this experience. Does he like to bake? Does he like to cook on the grill outside? Different type of recipes, different type of interests, and different type of lifestyles have completely different products and affinities attached to them. And so by being able to leverage this, they saw a massive lift in their click-through rates, over 40%. Another thing that they were able to improve on is discounting. Typically, many brands use blanket discounting. We've all been culprits of this. We've done it at one point or another. But ultimately, this brand was in a tough spot because they were selling higher-end appliances, and the consistent discounting and financial incentives were not only instilling bad customer behavior, but they were cheapening their brand as consumers expected a lower average price point for the products that they delivered. And so by leveraging machine learning again on top of this rationalized customer view, they were actually able to accurately target each and every individual and their price sensitivity, and ultimately decide whether they were discount buyers, full price buyers, into multiple different clusters, and target them with the appropriate offer at the appropriate time within their life cycle to actually incentivize conversion, maximize conversion. And this in of itself has a direct impact on this company's margins, because no more blanket discounts means that you're actually able to reduce the overall average discount, providing thereby improving your revenues at the end of the day. And finally, the very last thing I'll touch on before I want to pass it to Ali is that, this brand, like many others, has a call center. These devices ultimately need service. People have questions about them. They actually ship a recipe book with many of their appliances. And oftentimes consumers actually call in and ask questions about the recipes themselves to get help at times, whether it be through the chat on their site or even in the call center directly. And so every time somebody called into that call center for the longest time, those reps never knew anything about that customer. They had zero visibility. The customer had to explain to them, this is what I bought, this is the recipe that I'm talking about, this is what I'm trying to make, these accessories don't fit together. And they had to explain their whole life story to this rep, which is an extremely inefficient use of both of their times, and ultimately a frustrating experience for the customer who really just wants a delicious dessert at the end of their meal. And so by leveraging this unified view of the customer again, and having it be surfaced in a composable way to every single person within the enterprise that needs to see that record to help their customers along their journey, they were actually able to tailor the conversations down to the individual with the relevant context of the experience that they were engaging in and the offers relevant to that individual, and go through so many more calls per day. In fact, they were doing about 130% more calls every single day and helping 130% more people every single day that have turned into loyal customers, thanks to the ability to actually allow their representatives to deliver personalized and individualized experiences, all thanks to the composable enterprise that they undertook. And so at the end of the day, this is really just squares 1 and 2, if you will, of this customer's journey. This is a great foundation for them to grow on top of this composable platform. As they onboard more services and continue their sprints to improve and refine the experiences that they deliver, and ultimately deploy more sites, including for their professional line, for their B2B business, across 3 additional brands that they have. And we are delighted to have the privilege to work with them. And so with that, I want to pass it to Ali, who will walk us through some of the concepts that you should consider as you embark on your own commerce journey. Ali?
Thanks, Alex. Really enjoyed hearing about success stories from our joint customers. So what I'm going to cover next is how TA Digital leverages Acquia's DXP in combination with best-in-breed products to produce a future-proof commerce platform. Now, digital commerce is much more than just tools. It's people, it's process. So like the case study Alex showcased, decisions made by an organization can impact all the KPIs. And those decisions around user experience and accessibility, mobility, scalability, security, connectivity, all those things are factors to be considered in this type of journey. So this is why we always advocate begin with experiential commerce. Today's online shoppers don't compromise. They have options. They will not settle. The new normal is not going away anytime soon. We've learned that. And when this pandemic is over, and we all hope so, it will happen sooner rather than later, online shoppers have changed forever. I know I have. In addition to what Alex was talking about, everyone is on their mobile device. So consequently, mobile experiences are no longer optional. More people buy online than anywhere else started in 2019. And intuitive, frictionless, and accessible experiences are a priority for customers. So much so, 86% of users said that they're willing to pay more for better experiences. But that type of commerce, experiential commerce, typically fails because most platforms are limited and brittle, rendering poor experiences with no emotional context, and often organizations have to choose between the best experience or the best commerce. At the end of the day, the combination of enterprise experience and enterprise commerce is really hard to find. And what we found out over the years is that composable architecture is the only surefire way to achieve experiential commerce without relying on a monolithic platform, which is outdated or limited. So another critical element of next generation commerce, DXP, is scalability. Building once and deploying many times to many channels is the essence of composable commerce. With composable architecture, TA Digital helped dozens of customers, like the one that Alex spoke about, create a foundational platform with common core functionality serving a multitude of commerce features. The best part is that you can roll out brands on this platform with minimal customization, leveraging this enterprise layer for lower effort and maintenance. We also view that journey in phases. So there's a baseline with enterprise content, commerce, and analytics, but then there's also a phase 2, where we start pulling some of this advanced data and search that Alex talked about, specifically a customer data platform. And then also a phase 3, where there is a unified profile, and we start creating actionable insights and activation on those profiles with personalization and journey orchestration. So with that in mind, we wanted to talk a little bit about what to consider when considering and evaluating commerce, and what brands focus on when it comes to direct-to-consumer or B2B digital transformation. It's certainly not an easy journey, but there are some areas to consider that might improve some of the obstacles that you'll surely face. So start with your users, their personas, their journeys. Only after understanding your users can you give them the experiences that caters to their needs. Consider the ability to go live quickly, coupled with the ability to scale in the future. Consider building on top of platforms that have a robust roadmap and will continue to provide world-class experiences. Consider the biggest benefit of monoliths is that they're connected out of the box, and that is almost never the case. Take the phrase out-of-the-box connectivity with a grain of salt. Even the most natively out-of-the-box connected platform requires brands to do some customization. Consider laying down a foundation that will give you and your team control over your platform. Your goal is to build a robust and scalable enterprise. Composable DXPs are just a piece of that puzzle. So how do we do that? What brings us to the how, which is how did we help this brand and other brands go live in 3 months? This is where Commerce Factory comes into play, which is the only experiential and composable DXP using Acquia CMS in commerce engines powered by Elastic Fast or Commerce Tools, live in 90 days. And that includes out-of-the-box features with experiential design, with features and layouts such as full-width design, promotional banners, ratings and reviews, sophisticated typography, visual search results, and advanced mobile features and capabilities like designed for speed and simplicity, enables web applications that are progressive, PWA, enterprise CMS capabilities like page elements, product blocks, blogs, content workflows, multi-language, personalization, WYSIWYGs, and then enterprise commerce features that are so much more robust when it comes to platforms because, like I said, we're using Elastic Path or Commerce Tools in a headless way. So out-of-the-box features like address verification, promotions, bundling, catalog syndication, guided shopping, single platform for multi-catalogs, multiple payment options, order management integration, product bundles, guest checkout, single-page checkout, subscriptions, unified single platform for both B2B and B2C, and also account management. And then finally, enterprise search, leveraging AI and ML to produce relevant, personalized, and predictive search results with a focus on conversions and attribution. All those features available out of the box with Commerce Factory gives us the ability to provide brands the opportunity to go live in 90 days. With that in mind, everything else is also customizable because it's composable. So customers and brands can use their own custom complex UX. They can have different integration points, and they can have add-on and customized CMS and commerce features. And with that in mind, how do we take this platform live in 90 days? Well, this is our notional plan. We have 4 concurrent streams focused on user experience, the CMS, the commerce engine, as well as API-driven architecture. Leveraging all of the out-of-the-box features and functionality that I spoke about. And we're also using those, we're able to focus those 3 months only on the changes required for each unique brand. It's funny, over the last couple of years, I've seen all different types of reactions when presented with this 90-day claim, from shock to skepticism. But 3 months later, when we go live, I only see overwhelming sense of accomplishment. With that in mind, I'm going to pass it back to Caroline to go through our Q&A.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Alex and Ali. That was some really great information there, and I know our audience feels the same way. So like Ali just said, we're going to move into some audience Q&A now. So if you do have a question for either of today's speakers, please ask it using the question tool on the left side of your screen. We'll get to as many questions as we can over the next few minutes here, but if we don't get to your question, we'll make sure it gets forwarded over so that they can answer you offline. A second reminder that today's presentation will be available on demand, so look out for an email and with a link to that in your inbox later this afternoon. Awesome. So let's get to it. Ali, this first question is for you. How does Commerce Factory cater to B2B websites in addition to B2C?
Yeah, that's really interesting because we get this question all the time. There are a lot of brands that are B2B specific or B2C specific, but there are also a lot of brands that want to employ both strategies to go to market. And the great thing about Commerce Factory, because it leverages Acquia and it leverages a headless commerce engine, is that it becomes that single platform to cater to both your B2B and B2C customers. The powerful part about this architecture that uses composable commerce is it creates this foundation that you can build on in terms of features and functionality that cater specifically to what you need to get done for your brand. So this is how we can really help customers take advantage of both types of strategies.
Awesome. Thanks so much. That's great. Let's see. Moving on here. Second question for you, Ali. Does Commerce Factory support complex requirements and features than what a standard, or I guess more so than what a standard solution brings?
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to my earlier point is our foundation platform allows customers to start much ahead on day one by leveraging these out-of-the-box features and functionalities. But at the end of the day, most brands have specific requirements and specific needs that they need to be catered to, from complex UX to complex integration points, features, and functionality. So what Commerce Factory allows you to do is to leverage this foundation platform and customize to your specific needs. And like I said, this is why we say 90 days instead of 1 week, because this foundation is already in place. So the 90 days are focused on getting these things in place and focused on importing your products and your content into this platform to take you live.
Great. Thanks so much for going over that again there. So I think, let's see, this next question we have here, I guess we can direct this at either Ali or Alex, asking, would you advise a mobile application over a mobile site for startups? Thinking in terms of everything we've discussed here.
Yeah, that's a great question. Maybe I can take a first pass at it, and then Ali can fill in some color. Mobile apps are a fantastic medium for many businesses. In fact, there's plenty of businesses that were really founded being mobile first, right? Most notably, think of the Ubers of this world. So, mobile apps are extremely compelling, but there is one drawback to mobile applications, which is the drop-off rate post-install is extremely high for mobile applications. So a lot of new app subscribers will actually, download your application, try it out, and then oftentimes, and I'm a culprit of this myself as well as many others, you forget about that application. You don't go back to it for some time. Or you simply delete it after a few months of it not being used. In fact, your iPhone, at least, I'm not sure about Android, will actually delete applications automatically if you set the settings to do so, that you don't use after a certain extended period of time to save memory and space and ultimately protect your privacy as well. So all things considered, I would say, a mobile app is a fantastic medium and a fantastic way to support the customer journey. If your startup is mobile first in and of itself, and that is, a key element of your business model, by all means, please do start with a mobile application. But ultimately, websites which are responsive and are mobile friendly are equally, capable on mobile web, and ultimately, are consumable anywhere, whether it is your mobile device, your desktop, your iPad, maybe even a browser that you might have in your car one of these days. So, I personally, unless again you are all in on a mobile first strategy, would start with a website just due to its flexibility. Ali, I don't know if you have any thoughts around the matter.
Yeah, and I think this is a question that we see very, very often from our customers, because at the end of the day, mobile apps, there are the pros and the cons. They're expensive to create and maintain. You have to worry about different platforms, and each platform, iOS, Android, and others, really requires its own set of nuances that you have to manage. And then there's the mobile web of having responsive design. Is a lot easier to create and leverage your existing website to make available. But then at the end of the day, mobile apps continue to have this one advantage over mobile web, which is the native capability within a mobile device. And there have been many, many different things that have been built in to counteract that, like React Native or PWAs. But I think the answer is, at the end of the day, with Commerce Factory and this DXP, it really doesn't matter, because the mobile web version of this of Commerce Factory is fully responsive. So that's out of the box, fully responsive. You don't have to worry about making it responsive. And then the mobile app side, because of the composable commerce nature of this architecture, you can really connect this to any channel or any integration point in a way that you can't with a monolith. You can't do that with a platform that's singular end-to-end, at least not in an easy and scalable way. So regardless of which direction you want to go, this approach with composable DXP is definitely the way to go.
Great. Well, thank you both so much. I think that's some really helpful information to answer that question there. So we are going to leave it off there for today. I want to say thank you to Acquia for sponsoring today and to Ali and Alex for that really quality information there. And thank you to our audience members. We look forward to seeing you on an upcoming Adweek webinar.